So week one of the fantasy football season is finally here, and here's running back start at sit this week. So here's a few running backs I'm going to start off that I would start this week. The first guy, Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of off-season hype here about Bijan Robinson. And obviously, he was a high draft pick from this Atlanta Falcon team. And this week here, week one, he's got the Carolina Panthers coming to town. So Bijan Robinson, it's a good matchup on paper. This Panther team, one of the worst teams in the league. And this offensive line's one of the best run lines in the league here for this Atlanta Falcon team. So Bijan Robinson, he was a first-round pick in fantasy leagues. He's got a good matchup this week, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if he gets 100 total yards in this ball game and finds the end zone. So I got him as a start. Number two, we're staying with another rookie here, is Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. So Jahmyr Gibbs, another rookie that was a high draft pick, number 12 overall by this Detroit Lion team. And Gibbs, he could catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a unique type of playmaker. And the Lions are even saying they're going to use him in ways you wouldn't think they would use Jahmyr Gibbs. And they got to be very creative, especially to keep up on the scoreboard here in week one at the Kansas City Chiefs. I know David Montgomery's over there in the backfield, obviously, for this Detroit Lion team. But I think Jahmyr Gibbs, in terms of receiving the football, and even if he gets anywhere from 8 to 10 carries, can maximize that volume as well. So right now, well, he could be their number 2 wide receiver pretty much in the early going. Obviously, with Jameson Williams suspended 6 games, and they got to put up points on the board in a hurry versus a great Chief offense, I got him as a start this week. J.K. Dobbins, I have him as a start as well. I know Dobbins, he was banged up early in training camp, and I wasn't that high on him as well going into training camp, but now he's going to be a weapon in this offense where not many defenses, they're going to be ready for Dobbins, where they're going to obviously pay attention to Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham, Rashad Bateman. And Dobbins said this offseason he's worked a lot on catching the football out of the backfield. Then it's a contract season as well. So Dobbins last season, the few games he did play, was one of the better running backs in the league. And this week here versus a weak Houston Texan defense, and a ball game where we could see obviously this Raven team run out the clock a lot, where they're big favorites in this one, and rightfully so. I think Dobbins has a good ball game, and he's a perfect number 2 back for fantasy owners. This week, next is Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Jones, we know he has a great track record versus the Chicago Bears in his team. We know Aaron Jones can catch the ball out of the backfield, and a young quarterback like Jordan Love needs a running back like Aaron Jones, who could be a security blanket underneath, and a guy who could carry the workload 20-25 times a game. So right now, this is going to be a tight contested game, I believe, here between division rivals in the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. And Aaron Jones, when you count him out, usually is when he steps up and plays good football, and we've seen it with him time in and time out. So this week here, as a number 2 running back for fantasy owners, and a player that could put up in PPR leagues, I believe anywhere from 12 to 20 fantasy points. I have him as a start this week. Ramondre Stevenson, the next back, is I would start this week. I know it's a tough matchup versus the Philadelphia Eagles, but you want to talk about a running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield, and a New England team that doesn't have a lot of weapons on the outside. Stevenson, a lot of checkdowns we're going to see to him, I believe, in this game, and a physical runner as well in between the tackles. Like I said, it's going to be a tough matchup, but they're going to try to control the clock, and they're going to do that with a combo, obviously, of Ezekiel Elliott and Ramondre Stevenson. So I think even with a tough matchup ability here in PPR leagues especially, I got Ramondre Stevenson as a start this week. Number 6, Alexander Mattison of the Minnesota Vikings. Alexander Mattison, he's the running back over there now in Minnesota. I know they got Chandler as a backup and signed Myles Gaskin last week to a contract. But Alexander Mattison, he's similar to a Dalvin Cook, a strong running back in between the tackles, a guy that's got some decent speed as well. I don't think he has the same burst that obviously Dalvin Cook had in his heyday, but he's a guy that could catch the ball out of the backfield, and a running back that they have confidence in, that they cut Dalvin Cook loose after he's had 1,000 seasons. So right now, in an offense where teams got to worry about Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson as the main 2 targets in that team, I think Alexander Mattison, with boxes not stacked against him, could have a good ball game. And this Tampa team, it's going to be a tough season for them, especially with their offense getting off the field early and often, where it makes the defense tire out more. So I have him as a start this week. Next back's Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals. So Joe Mixon, there was off the field issues, no doubt about it, coming into the year. He's cleared of those charges, and there'll be no suspension here for Joe Mixon. He's got a great track record in his career at division rival, the Cleveland Browns. So I know Joe Burrow isn't 100%. He's going to play with the calf injury. And Joe Mixon, he's one of the only few cowbells left in this league where he's going to be a running back getting 20, 25 carries a game. So in volume alone, obviously, and he could catch the ball out of the backfield, even though I think his best days are behind him. This week in a good matchup, and like I said, where they're going to lean on him a little bit more with Burrow's injury and not 100%. I have him as a start this week, and the final running back I have as a start is Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't agree that Pollard was a first-round pick in many fantasy leagues, but if you got him in the second, third round, that's definitely a slam dunk for fantasy owners, in my opinion. So right now, with no Ezekiel Elliott and no veteran running back really over there, I know Ronald Jones is there in Dallas, and they got Deuce Vaughn, but he's a receiving back as well. I think Tony Pollard, we're going to see him get at least 10, 15 carries per game, see him catch at least 3-4 balls out of the backfield. And this Giant defense here, you got to spread them out a little bit. So Tony Pollard, with all those added factors and him being a big playmaker out of the backfield, I think this week at the New York Giants, he has a good ball game. And this Cowboy offense, adding Brandon Cooks to the mix is a huge addition, in my opinion. And it could open things up a little bit here for Tony Pollard. So I got him as a start. The sit side of things for running backs. Najee Harris, last season was a bad year for him for the most part, especially him going in the first round of most fantasy drafts. This week in a tough matchup versus San Francisco, I can't trust him. And Jaylen Warren, as the weeks go on, is going to be a running back that's going to creep into the workload, and he's a better receiver out of the backfield as well. And the way this game could go, if San Francisco is up to an early start, Najee Harris, he's not going to be in there when passing down. So right now, I have him as a sit this week with a tough matchup, and his yards per carry, which is horrible last season. Now Dalvin Cook, I have him as a sit as well of the New York Jets. Tough matchup versus a good Bill run defense. And him and Breece Hall, it seems like to me, it's going to be a 50-50 split to start the season over there in New York. So with a tough matchup and Dalvin Cook not 100% as well, and his stats have been on the decline over the last few seasons. The situation over there in New York, where right now I'm not comfortable starting any of these backs for the most part, especially Dalvin Cook. Like I said, if it's 50-50 split over there in New York with a tough matchup versus the Buffalo Bills, I'm just going to stay away and sit him this week. Now we're staying in the Cook family. His brother James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. So James Cook, I think he's going to have a good season, and he's the number one back over there, obviously, in Buffalo. But Damian Harris will be the short yardage and goal line guy, I assume, this season. But with a tough matchup at the New York Jets, and this Bill team, we know they like to drop back and throw the football 35, 40 times a game. And Josh Allen runs the football as well, at least 7 to 10 times per game. So right now, with all those factors, and James Cook getting his workload eaten into a little bit here, just with the tough matchup, and him not 100% being the full-time back, for this week I have him as a sit next back to Antonio Gibson of the Washington Commanders. So this could be a Brian Robinson type of ball game here, in my opinion, where this Washington team gets off to an early start and they're just going to run the football a whole lot. This Arizona team really doesn't have much. Joshua Dobbs is the starting quarterback this season. I know they got Hollywood Brown and James Conner, who are two solid players, but besides that, they don't have many playmakers on the team. And Joshua Dobbs is going to be a problem. So we know Gibson, he's a better wide receiver than an in-between-the-tackles back, and I don't know if he's going to have enough volume catching the football out of the backfield. And that's the reason I have him as a sit this week. I know he's a good running back as Gibson. I know he could catch 50, 60 balls this year, but just the way I think the game script's going to go here in week one, he's not really a running back I'm going to have confidence in. And I have him as a sit this week. Raheem Mostert, another running back I would sit this week. This Miami team, I don't know what they're going to do in the backfield, but I feel like they're going to drop back and throw the football a whole lot in this ball game in a potential shootout at the Los Angeles Chargers. And then when you got wide receivers like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you're pretty much just going to run the football to stay a little bit balanced. But this could be a ball game as well where I could see the Chargers get off to a hot start and they got to start throwing their way back into it a little bit. Here's this Miami team. But right now, Raheem Mostert, he's the starter over there. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Devin Achane start to work in to some role as well here for this Miami team and eventually take over in the backfield. But right now, the way the game script I think goes in this one, and Mostert not that great of a receiver out of the backfield, I think he's a running back I would sit this week. The next back's Cam Akers, the Los Angeles Rams. So I got Akers as a sit this week. I wasn't big on Akers going into fantasy drafts this offseason. And I know last season he had a few good ball games towards the end of the year, but right now it's a tough matchup. Looks like no Cooper Kupp's going to be there in the lineup here for this Ram team. And I think Seattle's going to try to make the Rams one-dimensional and have Stafford throw the football 40, 50 times in this game where he don't really have a true option that can make big plays and keep a defense honest. So right now I think Cam Akers isn't going to do much in this game. And the 12th man's going to be hyped up over there in the opener for the Seattle team. So with all those factors, I have him as a sit this week. Next back's Miles Sanders of the Carolina Panthers. I know workload is going to be there for Miles Sanders, but he was a product a little bit of the Philadelphia Eagles system. And even last season, there was ball games. He'll get 20, 25 fantasy points, and then the next week you don't see much out of him. So right now, this could be a ball game over there at Atlanta where they're down early and often is this Carolina Panther team. I know Atlanta's not that great of a team, but I could see Atlanta dominate the offensive line in this ball game. And it could be a game where Bijan Robinson really takes over and where they got to play from behind here as Carolina and pass the football a whole lot. So I know this offense doesn't have a lot of weapons, but I believe this Atlanta Falcon team, they're going to try to sell out on the run and make Bryce Young try to beat him in his debut. So right now, I don't think Sanders is a great option. And I have him as a sit this week. And the final running back I have as a sit is Khalil Herbert of the Chicago Bears. So right now, a lot of factors of why I have Herbert as a sit. I think this Packer run defense is pretty decent in my opinion. Justin Fields, he's going to run the football at least 7 to 10 times per game, especially at the goal line. And we just don't know how they're going to use D'Onta Foreman and Roschon Johnson as well. So right now, it could be a 3-man committee for all we know over there in Chicago. And I know Herbert, he was drafted in the later rounds, 9th, 10th round of most fantasy drafts. You saw him go. But right now, I don't have much confidence that Herbert could go out there and get a huge workload. If he did, he's definitely a running back that could be a top 15, top 20 running back this season. But right now, we're Foreman and Roschon Johnson over there in Chicago. And with a pretty stout run defense with Green Bay, he's not a running back I have confidence in this week to start. So that's a few running backs I would sit for week 1 of the fantasy football season.